Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Madam Secretary, would you take the roll, please?
Mr. Albrecht,
Here.
Mr. Brown,
Here.
Dr. Hall, here. Mrs. Root,
Here.
Mr. Teray,
Here.
Mrs. Gasparo,
Here.
and Mrs. Galbraith is here.
Stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our mission is to ensure that every child is challenged to reach his or her full potential academically, socially, and emotionally as they grow and develop into thoughtful, productive, and contributing members of society. I need a motion to amend the agenda to move public comment to before the public hearing on the budget.
Moved.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
I'm sorry, who was nay? How many nays do we have? Okay. Motion carries. Okay. It's great to see so many stakeholders here tonight. The Board of Education welcomes each of you here, and we value your opinion. Please remember that this meeting is a business meeting being held in public. Anyone wishing to address the board should do so in an orderly manner and only during the public comment section of the meeting. It is the policy of this Board of Education that we not respond to any public comments. Please be respectful of all those in attendance who wish to speak. The board may limit the number of public comments on a particular topic or issue, so please coordinate your comments with others to avoid repetition. Persons making public comments will be allowed 3 minutes. The Board of Education will not engage in debate or discussion. Please provide your contact information in the event that your comment requires additional research or data. Furthermore, personnel issues will not be discussed publicly. Thank you for your cooperation and understanding. We have many public comments tonight. We have a public hearing regarding the budget that we have to start at 7 o'clock. So we will get through as many of these as we can. First, we have Reverend Kevin
Mrs. Gasparo, before you go to that, is 7 o'clock on the agenda? Do we have the time for the public hearing?
The public hearing is at 7 o'clock.
And it's not on the agenda?
It's the meeting is starting at 6:30. The public hearing will start at 7
I'm sorry,
p.m.
what did you say, Terry? Okay, but we normally, I just want to let the record show, we normally put that time on the agenda so the audience will know that. And it's
Duly
not
noted.
on this agenda. Not sure why, but
First public,
please note that. Thank you.
first public comment, Reverend Kevin DeVries, regarding speaking on the administrative leave of Superintendent Cunningham. Welcome.
Thank you, President Gasparo and members of the board and the administration for the time. I appreciate it. My name is Kevin DeVries. I'm the lead pastor at Monee Free Methodist Church. I have a daughter at middle school and 2 children at the elementary school. I love the diversity that our district offers. I love and value the educational opportunities that it affords to our children. My wife and I are very involved in the school. She is the PTO president right now at Monee Elementary, was the secretary last year, and we've been active supporters of our school district in many different ways. 5 years ago, my wife and I were called to minister at the Monee Free Methodist Church. When we're called to minister, we're not just called to minister to those 4 walls. We're called to and committed to bring the good news of Jesus Christ to our whole community. And we've strived to do that, not just in word, but in deed. I hope and pray that we have given evidence of that, and we will continue to do so no matter what lies ahead. About 3 years ago, at the invitation of the superintendent, I was invited to be a part of the Community Relations Committee. The vision of the committee was a good one, to work together with superintendent and other community members to create a deep sense of community and neighborliness amongst the communities of our district. There were good and hard discussions at these meetings, and I would love to see them continued because they are needed. In serving alongside Superintendent Cunningham, I have come to know him as a man of faith, a man of integrity, and a man of character. I have come to know his wife, Carla, to be equal in all of these areas as well. So for me to hear that he was put on administrative leave was an utter shock. I also know that he's not perfect. I also know that none of you are perfect. I'm not perfect. There's only one perfect. His name was Jesus Christ, and they crucified him so that we can all be saved. But as I hear the news of his leave, as I hear the news of his leave and what I assume to be his eventual firing, I'm deeply saddened. I'm saddened that our district would be losing someone whose family lives in our district and has a vested interest in seeing our schools grow and succeed. I'm saddened that it seems to me that the action is racially motivated. And I believe is a symptom of a greater ill that remains in our community. As a community pastor, I am called by God to bring attention to the wrongs and injustices that remain in our community. And one of those is the racial divide that continues to rear its ugly head. And my fear is that Superintendent Cunningham's dismissal is a casualty of this divide. I could be totally wrong. And as there is information that I'm not aware of, I get that. But I would ask the Board of Education to be completely transparent and, with Mr. Cunningham's permission, release all the egregious actions that have brought us to the place that he needs to be removed.
There's time, sir.
Can I keep going?
Yeah, that's 3 minutes.
Can we say 3 minutes or 5 minutes?
Clarity was
Okay.
not given. The sheet says 5 minutes.
Can I have 30 seconds more?
But what does the board
Didn't hear
policy
it.
says?
All right. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So our policy says 5 minutes, but I guess it was changed.
No,
Our policy says 5 minutes, but I
it
guess.
says persons making public comment will be allowed 5 minutes. The Board of Education may extend or reduce the time limits at its discretion.
So the time
We had
was,
a-
the time was reduced.
We had a discussion about this you were not standing here. I would rather get through as many of these public comments as we can.
Was it before the meeting? The
Mr. Brown,
discussion? I'm
I
just
asked
asking a
each
question.
board member individually. The discretion of the board, it's going to be 3 minutes.
But why was the public comment moved from where it was?
Because we have to do the public hearing for the budget at 7 o'clock, which is the time it was
Okay,
published.
but you have public comment on the agenda after the hearing. So why
We
did
made
you
a
put it
motion.
before the hearing?
The motion
so
was
you can
approved.
cut it off by
We need
7
to move
o'clock.
on.
Let's just be real. Thank you.
Next public comment, L. Moore, regard bullying and safety.
Good evening, board members.
Good
To
evening.
be successful, we must take the bureaucracy out of education and concentrate on empowering the people of Crete, Monee, the school district here. This is the only way that we, all of us, the people, can have the school system that we have all envisioned. What has happened since Michael Ture has been on the school board has been and still is utterly shameful. Our children's future have no space for personal agendas. Michael Ture, you are more interested in yourself than our children and their education. Something has to change. We cannot let you dictate our lives and those of our kids' future. As a community, we must stand fast together and resist those who do not represent us, like you, Michael Ture. We will stand fast against liars and corrupt imposters. We believe Michael Ture is too easily manipulated to be a board member. He apparently can't take a stand for what is right. He is letting others guide him to make decisions that benefit not all the children of the district. So bullying. Michael Ture, you have bullied overall district school staff. You have bullied our African-American district school staff and African-American students. You have bullied and manipulated our taxpayers. You have bullied the community leaders. You have bullied our elected officials. You have manipulated the middle school project so bad that the taxpayers are now paying thousands and thousands in additional dollars. I am sure you remember the oil storage tank and the handrails. You have bullied and manipulated the press. You are bullying the union. You have bullied to get rid of the wrestling coach. You are bullying to have your son become the head football coach. You are bullying to have Michael Duggan. You have bullied to have have Michael Duggan replace our superintendent, who you are leading the charge to terminate. And the beat goes on. Now, many of your allies have openly said that they themselves have enough of your stupidity and divisiveness. They have promised that you will not be reelected, even if they have to run against you. However, we will not wait until then. There is no room for bullies such as yourself, of your size, and the overseeing of the education and the well-being of our students. Therefore, we, the community, demand your resignation. Tonight, you must go.
Thank you.
Hey, I would just like to read the policy. Can I just read the policy here? Just to say that number 3 in our board policy says, respect the board president's decision to shorten public comment, to conserve time and give the maximum number of individuals an opportunity to speak. Respect the board president's decision to determine procedural matters regarding public participation, not otherwise covered in the board policy. So I just wanted to make that clear.
Next is Jessica Moore. I believe it says Jessica, regarding a situation at the ELC. If this is a personnel issue, we will not be making any comments on it, but is this Jessica? No. Taisha, okay, I'm sorry, I had a hard time reading the handwriting. You can come. You're being videotaped. We need you to come down to the microphone. Thank you. Sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you.
Good evening. I understand this is a personnel issue and you can't speak on it, but we all know that our community, as well as our school district, is still very racially charged. Friday before last, we had 2 teachers speaking to each other. One decided to make a racially charged comment. How are you supposed to feel when nothing is done about it? A white teacher said the N-word and nothing is done about it. How is everyone else supposed to feel when nothing is done? You can say, oh, we can have an investigation, or as he say, she say, but that does not take away that feeling of being degraded, being looked down upon, made to feel like you aren't as equal or as educated. Me personally, because I'm a guest teacher, I work in all the schools in the district. I'm very educated. You're talking to someone that has multiple degrees. So I will never feel like less than a person, but the school board as well as the administration does not have their ear to the street. They do not listen to the teachers. The teachers are the ones that are teaching our children, teaching the future. Who wants someone that is still racially motivated teaching kids when they're 3, 4, 5 years old and up? That's setting a bad example, not only in the classroom, but in the neighborhoods. Something has to be done about it.
Thank you. Next, we have Reverend Dr. James Hunt regarding community unity.
Members of the Board of Education, staff, parents and students, family, and friends. My name is James Hunt. I'm the pastor of New Hope Christian Community Church in Monee. We've been in Monee for several years, and we are thoroughly invested in the community, especially our youth, because we believe that our youth are the key to our future and to our future success. And so New Hope has been involved in creating mentoring programs at Crete Monee High School, at the Monee Education Center, as well as the Monee Elementary School, where I am also a member of the PBIS committee. I have to tell you, when I heard what took place during the closed session of the Board of Education, I was deeply disturbed. I was disappointed. I was saddened, and I have to tell you, I was outraged. A man was relieved of his position without cause and without provocation, despite the fact that we have achieved excellence in our schools. Our ACT, I understand our ACT scores have never been higher. I understand that we received awards for even the middle school building, received a project award. The Magnet School is one of the top schools in the state, if not the country. And the Crete Monee High School is recognized as one of the top schools by World U.S. News Report. And so I was unhappy, I was saddened. But I remember something that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once said. He said, it is always the right time to do the right thing. When I first met Dr. Nathaniel Cunningham, he was just coming to his new position, and as a pastor, I organized a meeting of the pastors in Monee and Crete and University Park so that we can meet with him. And when he accepted, I was very happy about that, but he did something that was quite remarkable when he came to the meeting. Many times when you come into a new position or a new place, you come with your resume out. You let people know what you've done. You let people know what your agenda is. But Dr. Cunningham did something remarkable. He asked what we thought was needed to make sure that the children receive the best education. I'll just be a few seconds, just a few seconds. Here's what I want to say. I believe that we have come to this place tonight for such a time as this. With all the things that are going on in this country right now, with all the divisiveness that's taking place, I believe that we have a chance to show the world what this district is all about. That we have a chance to show the strength that the diversity has. And so I strongly urge the Board of Education to reconsider its opinion and reinstate Dr. Nathaniel Cunningham as superintendent of the Crete Monee High School District. It is always the right time to do the right thing.
Thank you. Next, we have Taisha Goff regarding Crete Monee 201U. Did I say that correctly? Taisha? Thank you. Sorry.
Good evening. My name is Taisha Goff, and I'm both a tenured teacher and a two-sport athlete coach in this district. I have been since the year 2003 when I was first hired. Let me start by saying the reason I'm here and remain in this servitude is to do service to my students, be it the students academically or the athletes. But I feel like the unspoken needs to be said. Have you ever noticed that we as a district are always on the news for negativity and the positivity has completely disappeared from this entity? It's a war, and I did not ask to be in it. After giving 15 years of my life to a district that is afraid of positive change and afraid to have real conversations about race and embrace the population it services, I figured, what better time than now? I feel personally that this new board that I was forced to, I don't know, go try to politic for, which I refuse to partake in, rules by fear and discourse. The confusion, disorganization, intimidation, and blatant racism is obvious. This is almost as bad as the Trump administration. It's power hungry, reactive instead of proactive, and it doesn't stop there. The teachers union is run by fear and intimidation, lies, and scare tactics. It puts teachers against administration, and quite frankly, that doesn't serve any purpose in politics. The back scratching, all of this is what I've seen over the years. I'm tired of it. If you're not in the friendship club and you don't fall in line or you don't jump through the hoop that's presented to you, you aren't welcome. I know this because I live this. I ask that instead of feeling like this is an attack, please know that this is just a statement of fact. And the fact is that there is a reason for the other state of chaos this district is in. Every man and every woman and every race is for themselves. The politics has ruined the sole reason for this entity. Have you ever wondered why the EEOC has Crete Monee on file multiple times? Lawsuit after lawsuit, litigation after litigation. Have you ever wondered why minority teachers aren't here? Why is there such a big turnover of the minority staff when it's the majority that we service? No one wants to be a target. I wear my target proudly. Unity starts with you. Yeah, it's a catchy slogan, but is it really true? Especially when you look at the people of color as if they are beneath you, as some of you are looking at me now. Just as the pictures you advertise, look at the social media bashing that you see on the sites. You know, Crete News you can use, Crete Forum. Oh yeah, it's amazing, all I can say. Have you ever read it? Many sit here rolling eyes. Some are videoing me right now without my permission. But if you are recording me without permission, I suggest you delete it because I will sue you. You don't have permission to put me in your personal gossip. Being black at Crete Monee is a crime, and I'm still serving my time. You can do your job, even more than your job, and still be treated like less than your work. We only seem to embrace when there's something to be received or gained. Think about football players. Would you ever interact with them if they weren't out there scoring points for you? What would you do for them outside of the field? Let them make a mistake, and here's a book to throw at them and a bus to run them over with. Ask yourself, would you even deal with these children outside of them serving you for something you want? How do you serve them? I'm beyond being silent. I'm tired of feeling like if I speak up, I'm a walking target, because that's what happens in this district. In this district, you hire, fire, rehire, then retire. Who knows?
Your time is up. Thank you.
You make and change rules to suit your own needs. I have read this board wants to make Crete great again. When was it great? As I asked you to reflect on
Ms. Goff, your time is up.
Population. How many times have you fed into nonsense? But it's fine. I'm done. Your lack of empathy and understanding is evident, and I'm going to leave you with Black Lives Matter. The students you serve.
We need to finish the public comments, and we cannot do that until everybody's thank you. Jessica Johnson, regarding leaving the district and why.
Good evening. I was kind of unaware what I was coming into tonight, but my name is Jessica Johnson. I have worked with many of you for the past 10 years. I was an avid volunteer for the schools. I have always supported the schools and the community. Both my husband and I have always been involved with the town of Monee. We loved Monee. However, this past summer, we moved out of Monee. We started looking in the spring, and we knew we needed to get out of here before the 17-18 school year. I did not want my daughter to attend the middle school and wanted to plant roots in another community for our children and their education. The past couple years, while our oldest attended what was a sixth grade center and now the new middle school, was eye-opening and alarming. I watched the lack of discipline basically run a school and therefore ruin opinions and the education for others. I saw a new norm of attitude and respect for teachers that is so low that it was embarrassing. Teachers should not be disrespected by students ever. No students. Students disrespecting students the entire day, bullying, everything we did not want for our kids, as I'm sure many of you don't want for your own kids. Teachers saying they can't do anything. Administrators saying they are doing something, but nothing was done. Time after time, kids who fought or bullied or were put on red were given chance after chance. My kids would cry over what was going on in their classrooms. I watched two of the kids causing trouble get maybe a 2-day in-school suspension and go right back to class and start it all over again. Yet, the kids who were there to learn or receive an education had to worry about being picked on or someone picking a fight in the hallways day after day. That is why we got out of here. It's not safe in the middle school. Physically and sometimes more importantly, emotionally, it is unsafe. These are critical years for our children, learning about themselves and others. And the saddest part is, as you can see tonight, there's definitely a race division. It's here in this boardroom and it's in this district. We should be here for the kids, not for our own selfish reasons. We should be backing good students regardless of color and supporting all of our students. Discipline is needed. I'm happy that we got out of here when we did, and now I see a whole new world that my kids were lacking in this district, unfortunately. You are losing great families here in Crete, Monee. Either they have moved or planning on moving or have enrolled in private schools. At the top of my head, I know 17 families of my friends that have moved from this district. These are good families that were involved. Look at the numbers from Monee Elementary last year, the 5th grade class. How many enrolled in your 6th grade? Just like myself, parents wanted out of here before 6th grade. Why? What is wrong? What is going on? Address it and make the needed changes. I hope you can figure out the issues and address them now before it gets worse. The upper levels need to be fixed, and it starts at the middle school. That is where you are losing your support. Thank you.
Thank you. We have time for one more. Ebony Rucker regarding Our Children Are Watching.
I probably won't get as many hand claps as everyone else once I'm done, but I'm okay with that. I stand before all of you, the board, families, community members, and everyone. And I first want to start by saying it would be nice if we could all come to school
Ms.
board
Rucker,
meetings.
you need to address the board, please.
It would be nice if we could all come to school board meetings like this and not just when we want our biases or problems heard, okay? Anyone can run to be an elected official, anyone. Most times people run uncontended, and that is what it is. However, our children are watching. Our children are watching everything that goes on. They see it all, they hear it all, they read Facebook posts and messages from different groups, and it's very alarming. They need to learn how to restore things and mend harm as a whole. What we are seeing, what we are showing them, and what we are modeling to them is wrong. We wonder why we have the problems that we have, not just in the community of University Park, because every community has bad children and bad issues, but it's what are we going to do to help these at risk and these bad children? Student discipline. I'm getting put in mailboxes and all types of things about student discipline. That's a private issue. SB 100 calls for school discipline to be restorative and not punitive, okay? So when we're issuing out consequences, we need to be very mindful. Just like I came to this board a few months ago about a bullying situation with my nephew that everyone in the foreground knew about. And they knew about it because we have friends of friends hiring people who are unqualified, who cannot meet the par to do the job to serve our children. That is a problem. I stand here as an alumni, as a former employee, and as someone that is very vested in my community and what these children are doing. I work for a school district that has a high school and a unit district that last year gave out 8 IB diplomas. Crete Monee gave out 0. And it's not to say that this is where it's us as a whole. We sit here and we vote. We vote for who we want to sit in these seats to represent us. So we need to really look about what we're showing and what we're modeling our children to see. This is 2018. Our children should not have to come to meetings to hear about racial divides as children. What are we teaching them? Not just the board, but us as parents too. I have seen and come to several board meetings, and I have never seen this many people here. And we're not here because we care. We're here because we want to put up a gripe and make everything a black and white issue. When right is right and wrong is wrong. We're putting people in positions. We're putting people in positions based upon who they know and not what they know. We have people breaking all types of rules. And what are we teaching our children? Because you know somebody, you can break rules? That's not okay. That's not okay, and it's not fair to our children. So for our own personal sake, our family's sake, our community's sake, put the racial jargon beside you. Whether that be for the board, whether that be for families, whether that be for Crete Forum, whether that be for Crete Community News you can use, because I see it all. I see the comments about black kids, people not wanting black children in Crete Monee and everything else, but it is ridiculous.
Ms. Rucker, your time
and I
is
am
up.
out of time, but you know what? Time, we can place a magnitude of time on what we have to say, but we're losing our children. We're losing our children based upon not wanting to have time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I get a motion to open the public hearing regarding the 2017-18
Ms.
budget?
Gasparo, are you going to address the people who gave you comments? What do they need to do? Because they gave you comments and they weren't able to express their comments.
As usual, any comments that are on here, you can email us, or for those of you that did get to speak, if there's a comment to be made or if there's an answer to a question, it will be put on the website. So I'm assuming that since it's on here, hopefully everybody put their names and contact information. If not, you can get this back to put that on there.
Or come back.
At the next meeting, yes. Now, can I get a motion, please, to open the public hearing?
Move.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Albrecht,
Aye.
Mr. Brown,
Nay.
Dr. Hall, Mrs. Ruth,
Aye.
Mr. Teray,
Aye.
Mrs. Gasparo,
Aye.
and Mrs. Galbraith is an aye.
Mr. Sermon?
Thank you. Good evening, Board of Education and community. The public hearing for the budget is an opportunity for community members or the board to make any comments that they wish or suggestions they wish on the budget. It has been put on display and has met the requirements. We put that on display beginning August 16th, both in the administrative offices and also on our website. We also have published a notice of the public hearing and also that the budget was being put on display also. Tonight then, I'm going to review some of the documents that are on board docs, or not on board docs, on board book, and go through those almost one at a time to give you kind of an idea of some of the things within the budget, and then open it up if any of the public have any suggestions when it comes to the budget. No, I'll do it from here. You don't need to. I'm just going to refer to those. I'm not going to put anything on the screen. And that. The first document that is there is my board report on the budget. And just again, to go through that little by little, we have met all the requirements according to the Illinois School Code in putting the budget on display and publishing a notice of that. I'm going to refer you down to some supporting data that is down there about a half the way down the page of that document on page 1. When it talks about additional revenue, one of the things that I presented to the board was that the budget was had a $4.4 million deficit when I presented that to them. It still has that right now because, again, I'm doing an analysis of that. Those were numbers that were given to me when I took over that position, so I put those in there. However, in looking at least at the revenue, and you'll see that in my report, I've confirmed that the state will be paying us an additional $2 million in additional revenue from various things. So that really cuts that deficit almost in half. Now, again, I'm not right now today ready to present my full analysis because I haven't completed that. And I'm going to go into that a little bit. But at least it does show some hope and helps the district when it comes to the revenue source. Those are confirmed through the new funding formula that has taken place. And most of that revenue is from the hold harmless clause that is in there. So that is something to be aware of. The second document that is there is a document, the tentative budget presentation. That's the same presentation that I've made to the board last month and also in the committee of the whole. Those things have not changed at all. None of those numbers have changed. They're all the same. So that presentation is there. I will tell you as an update to this is that I have met with all principals. They have gotten copies of their budgets. They are reviewing those. So that has been done. I've met with all department heads and directors on their budgets. They've given me feedback, and I've had discussion with them. So that has been done. So we're in the closing stages of getting all those things done and that. So that's just kind of an update for you. The third page that I've given to you, the third document I should say that I've given to you is, and we talk a lot about zero-based budgeting and what is zero-based budgeting. And so I've given you two examples in here, one on the revenue side and one on the expenditure side. My definition of zero-based budgeting is really starting from scratch, of taking everything down to zero and beginning adding things. So what you'll see again in the third document is on the revenue side. This is something that I do. So you'll see that. You'll see these are revenue from state sources. So you'll see all the state sources here, and I've documented and explained each one of those of where we're at in the budget that's been presented to the board. The one that really shows, though, the zero-based budgeting is the fourth document, which is zero-based budgeting of expenditures. So what you'll see in there is account by account, line by line of items that I put into the budget. And again, I start building that from scratch. And this area is just the curriculum program area. So what you'll see is you'll see some salaries, some purchase services and that. So in my discussion with Laura, our assistant superintendent for curriculum, I go through with her and she kind of itemizes for me all of those things, all of those items that are under each category, really building the budget from the ground up. To me, that's zero-based budgeting. So this year is then used as a foundation to build that budget, and then it helps me develop a 5-year plan as we start moving forward. So this analysis, both on the revenue and the expenditure side, is what I do for every account that I will be presenting back to the board when it comes to budgeting. Okay. The last document that is in there is the tentative budget, which is the ISB form. That is put in there because all of those items that are in there meet the requirements according to the Illinois School Code when it comes to those things that need to be presented as a budget. It's really a form that is out there. That's also the form that we submit back to the state of Illinois, to the county clerks, and also to the regional offices of education. Okay. So those are my comments right now. If the board has some questions, I'll be happy to answer that. Or if the public has any suggestions about the budget, I'll be happy to open that up at this time.
I think it's very difficult for this, and for us to have some public dialogue without a clear presentation to the public. So I think we got an opportunity to make that a little better. The public, for the most part, do not have any clue what you're talking about. The average person out there, typically we allow the presentation to go up on the screen and we address the public as such. So
I could quickly do that if you'd like to do that. I mean, I'm
And
open
it
to that.
is on the website, correct?
It is on the website. It is under board book and that. But Mr. Brown, I can do that if you like to do that.
look like we have a person want to speak on it.
Please make sure that you understand that the comments are only regarding the budget at this point in time.
I think so.
I have a question. You said that this budget is the same budget that you presented a while back. What's on the agenda? I'm trying to see if adjustment has been made to cover the salaries of a new superintendent for this fiscal year, since you're putting one on administration? So will we be double paying for that in this particular budget? The second item I'm concerned about is there's a notion out there where we're going to be paying a contractor to go door by door to verify residency within the district. Is that also in that budget? And third, what was the levy that was levied for the district so that we would know whether or not our taxes are going to increase? Because you're saying right now we're at a $2.2 million deficit. So both of those items would only cause this budget to go further south if those items are not already incorporated in this budget.
Sure. Just if you could say this, so I make sure I cover everything. In case I don't, if you please remind me of that. When it comes to the superintendent's salary, what is in the budget right now is the current superintendent's salary. I have
And
not
he
made
is
any.
still our superintendent.
He's still our superintendent. I have not made any adjustments for that, so that is still in the budget. When it comes to, I think the second question was about the residency contractor, I believe. There has been, I have put in an amount into the budget. I believe that amount is $20,000 that I have put in there for a contractor for residency. And the third one, is on the tax levy and that. The levy is and I'm going to get a little technical here. So the levy can only be increased by CPI. By 2.1% was the CPI that came out. So it can only be increased by that. It cannot be increased by any more. The only one that can increase, however, is your debt service fund. That is not regulated by CPI, and that is regulated by the amount of bonds that you have and what your debt service is. But everything else is regulated by CPI or 5%, whichever is less. And then.
And the debt service for this school district is going up. The debt service payment for this year is increasing. So therefore, that has an impact on this year's budget, which is also contributing to the budget going south. So I'm trying to see with the new expenditures that they're adding to this budget, there's no revenue to cover those expenditures. So I'm just trying to make sure that you're talking about zero-based budgeting, that we're taking a look at the essentials first as you're adding back to that zero to make sure that we're making sure that academic performance is top versus all these ancillary things that we're doing that are not necessarily conducive to bringing revenue in the district. Even if you went out to the district and did do such a thing as knocking door by door to check this, at the end of the day, whatever you found is taking revenue from the district. It's not bringing revenue in,
right?
Which means the expenditures that you're adding to this only becomes another issue going south. So I'm asking this board to make sure that they understand what they're doing when they're talking about this budget. Because last year, I think the majority of the people in here, taxes went up because of that little special provision you had. But we want to make sure this year that we're doing the right thing in terms of making sure that we're doing things that are in the benefit for the students of this district so that we can continue with the academic performance that we have started to date.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, so I have a comment about that special investigator you have that you're hiring.
Ma'am, that is going to be an agenda item in a little bit if you'd like to
No, it's
wait.
about the budget. Can you significantly say that you can validate that the hiring of that investigator and causing the budget gap to widen when that investigator can go, and what he's here for is to challenge residency. And I wonder if everyone knows in that residency that if he comes to your door and you don't let him in, that's a denial. Your kid doesn't go to school. If he comes in your house and asks to go in your refrigerator and you say no, that's a denial. Your kid can't go to school. If he says, I want to go upstairs, downstairs, anywhere in your house, and he says no, why would you put that in the budget? That should not be in the budget, that investigator. That's just something that should be independently hired by you guys, not the budget.
Hello.
Hi, good evening, President Gasparo and members of the board. My name is James Young. And I wear many hats in the community. But for tonight, I just want you to view me as a taxpayer. By profession, I am a school teacher. I've been teaching in Chicago Heights middle grade for the past 16 years, so I'm quite familiar with how school boards operate, how teachers feel, how students feel. But I am interested, first of all, in knowing who this gentleman is that's presenting these numbers to us. That's number one. Number two, I know there has been some discussion about displaying it on the board, and that you mentioned, President Gasparo, it was on the website. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to pull it up on my iPhone in here, but I would like to see it on the screen so I can follow along with the numbers and the comments that are made. It will make it a whole lot simpler. Okay. And thirdly, I want you to keep in mind that I would appreciate it if the board was physically responsible and not waste taxpayers' monies. I was initially here to speak on behalf of Dr. Nathaniel Cunningham because I have personally worked with him for the past 2 years. Okay, I know, President Gasparo, I know, so I'm going to end this. Okay, but I would like to see the numbers up there on the screen. And I'm quite sure I'm not the only person in the audience that would like to see it.
We can get those up there.
Taxpayers. Thank you.
Sure. I can do that.
Ken, is it possible to get that up there?
I
now?
can do that. Let me work and get it up.
Is there a reason why it wasn't up there? We always put it up.
And just for those of you that don't know, Ken Surma is our new Assistant Superintendent for Business. He's been with us since July 1st. We have discussed the budget at committee of the whole meetings, and it is on the website. He's going to bring it up now. While he's doing that, were there any other questions on what he discussed?
I have a question for you, Ken. When do you anticipate the $2 million from the state?
We get that in various payments right now. So they have already started paying that. We get it twice a month, about $675,000 per payment we get. So about $1.3 million a month that we get from the state right now. Now that is what the hold harmless is. Things like part of that 2 million is about some of it is transportation costs. So those are categoricals. And so the state is determining when to pay those right now. So I haven't gotten those, but some are hold harmless, some are then categoricals.
Thank you.
Ms. Houston, right?
Good evening. My name is Cynthia Hudson. I have a couple of questions about the budget. By us not being able to see it like we normally do, I don't know what was on the budget, so I don't know how much is spent and what area it's spent on. I also would like to know, I'm hearing things about an upgrade for the teachers or the employees' insurance. Is that going, I would like to know how much of an increase, if it's going to be an increase, how much of an increase will that be? And with the insurance, could you all have found a way to maybe get rid of some things if you wanted to add some things so the cost could be the same, opposed to an upgrade and increasing the cost to make the budget higher? We can't afford that. We need to be concentrating, putting our dollars into our students. Okay. And I was also concerned about this investigator. I would like to know, were there different bids? And if so, who are the companies and how much are the bids?
We will talk about that when it comes to that item on the agenda.
Okay.
And I can tell you that there was not upgrades to the insurance. Mr. Neal, would you like, while Ken is pulling that up, would you like to discuss that?
Actually, the insurance didn't go, there were no upgrades. What we did was actually we met as a committee that included members of both unions and non-union staff, as well as administration board members. And we agreed to changes that that decreased the increase that was coming as a result of the insurance premiums going up. We did make some changes to the plan, but they were not upgrades. They were actually intended to reduce the cost. And so the all of the stakeholders of all the employee groups were a part of that process, and that was one of the goals, was to try to keep the costs as under control as possible. Healthcare costs.
So was it an increase in?
Healthcare costs are going up dramatically, and unfortunately with that goes the premiums. If we had made no changes and just kept the existing plan, we would have had a much larger increase. So yes, it's going up, but it is going up by significantly less because there were changes that employees agreed to make to reduce that increase.
Okay, do it state how much of an increase is going up from what it was in the previous year?
Mr. Surma probably can have those numbers for you specifically. I don't want to give you a guess, but the percentage-wise, I believe it's around 12% that it's going up. It was going up by a much higher percentage.
Okay, and when you say 12%, I'm not looking at numbers, so I don't
Understood.
know what you mean 12%.
Right, we have to, you want to see a dollar amount. I don't have that number because he's working with that. I will say employee premiums are going up as well. So the employees are sharing in that increase. It's not just the board eating that entire increase.
I just want the board as a whole to remember the reason why we're here are for the children. You know, if we can put more of our dollars into the children, then I'm satisfied, and we all should be satisfied. I also would like to know if we can get a town hall meeting on what's going on, the termination of Dr. Nathan
We can only have our comments regarding the public hearing.
And
right now.
I'd like to add something about the insurance, because I was on the insurance committee. We spent a number of hours trying to do everything we can to keep the costs down. But one thing I would argue is that taking care of our teachers is for the children. I mean, there are direct line to the children. You have to take care of your teachers, and healthcare is one of the main things that takes care of teachers. If they're not healthy, if they're not in the classroom, they can't teach our kids. So I would argue that point that we're forgetting the children and making decisions like that. I mean, that's the main thing we have to do for our teachers. And they get very, I mean, all we do is very minimal in my mind for the teachers as far as health insurance. I don't think there's anybody out there whose health insurance rates haven't increased. And we did the very best we could for hours trying to keep that premium down. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
I want you all to be healthy. If you're dealing with my children, you need to be healthy. You can't help my child if you're sick, okay? I just want to make sure that you're making the right decisions and not just putting the cherry on the pie, so to speak.
There were no increases in actually what is being offered, so.
There were some changes to services though, that
but it was not
we
increased.
did not have to take, correct?
That I would have to ask the people that were on the committee.
Just giving clarity.
Sure, I am. Let me, if I can.
I think her question wasn't about taking care of the teachers because we understand that that's an employee benefit for staff. I think her question was related to the fact that we're using dollars for ancillary things as opposed to taking those dollars to help reduce the increase in the cost of medical coverage. I think that's the point she was trying to make from that. Not that you wasn't taking care of the teachers, the fact that you're spending dollars on a contractor to do this when those dollars can help reduce the cost of medical costs for some of the staff as opposed to having an increase coming out of their pocket. That's what I think she was trying to do.
Thank you.
Mr. Surma?
So I'll go through the presentation that I talked about, and I'm gonna do this manually and flip through this as I go. But this is the presentation on the tentative budget. And board, if you'd like to have a seat in the audience, I'll wait a second if you want to do that, or you can wait up here, whichever is more convenient for you.
Ken, I just want to, before you get started, I just want to put this in your ear because I
Yes.
think it's very important, and I'm sure, almost sure, that you will not discuss it, and that's life safety. So I'll
Okay.
give you the opportunity before I chime in on that.
Sure, sure. So I'm going to go through this, and I've taken this right off of the board book, and again, just to share with everybody. So this is where the public hearing presentation is, the various documents. I'm going to go through these docs and just kind of explain them so you can see what they are. The first one that I had there was if I could find it, give me 1 second. Don't stop. There it is. So this is the board report on the budget presentation. So this is there and kind of explaining a lot of the little details that are in the budget. So you'll see some things with the issue and also some justification that according to the Illinois School Code, we have to do certain things and that. What the board policy and best practices was. But one of the areas that I refer to was down here under supporting data. So what you'll see down here is some information that I've verified through the state of Illinois of additional funds that will be coming in that were underestimated in the numbers that I was given. And that's nothing bad that it was underestimated at all. It was just that was the information that we had at the time when those were estimated. And now with the new funding formula that has passed in the state of Illinois, we've come to know that we'll be getting more money, state aid, I should say, than what was previously thought. So you'll see different areas here concerning private facility tuition reimbursement that we get through the state. So there's some numbers here in various areas, and it totals about $2.2 million that we'll be getting more than what was estimated. I do believe that that number is going to be a little bit higher because there are some things on the federal side that we have found out also with some of our grants that will be a little bit higher than that. So that revenue I'll be putting into what I'm going to call an adjusted budget that I'm going to be coming back to the board with, but those additional revenues will be coming through. The rest of the report that you'll see here is just some other things about the goal, and you'll see that in the one statement right above the bold titling. Right in this statement here that it's my goal to come back to the board probably in October or November in a month or two with an adjusted budget. I should have my full analysis done yet at that time. I don't know yet if it's going to be October or November, but it's going to be one of those months that I'll be able to come through with an adjusted budget that will then include this money up here and any other adjustments that I'm able to make in the budget. So that's the first document that is out there. The second one that I talked about is the actual budget presentation that was presented back to the board in August on the tentative budget. So this is the same budget that is there. These are some of the procedures that I shared with the board, and I think they're aware of it, but the public can be aware of it. Some of the procedures that we need to go through in order to approve a budget. So you'll see the meeting, and you'll see this publish a notice here. So we've done that. And then there's a board meeting on the 26th where we're holding the public hearing that we have to have. And then the approval takes place immediately after the public hearing, approval or rejection. And then we have to submit our budget to various entities, other government agencies once we complete that. You'll also see some information on the development of the budget. So you'll see that currently I've used information that Dr. Williams had left for me. So I've used a lot of those numbers in the development of the budget that is here. And you'll see that in a couple of slides there. So you'll be seeing that, and that has been inputted into Skyward. Skyward is our financial software. It's also on the student side also, but it's been inputted into there. So the budgets are there. And in the future, this is something that I refer to about continue meeting with the principals and department heads. I've started that process. I'm continuing that process as we go. Also the meeting with the administrators, assistant superintendents, directors. I've met with them. And I'm going to start developing plans in these areas once the budget is finalized in these areas so I can start developing a 5-year plan with the budget. I'm a believer in planning things out and looking forward and having a foundation and a framework for the future. So to do that, I need to look at some areas here technology, curriculum, operations, facilities, where we can have some long-range plans so we can see what is going to be planned in the future, because we do have, our facilities are some large assets that we have. Probably the second most important asset after our children. So they are large assets that we need to take care of in order to maintain them and that. I think there has been times where that has been lacking. And I think we all know that in this heat, we found some things that have been difficult in some of our buildings, like air conditioning. So it's looking at those plans and trying to develop plans for our facilities. These are the numbers that are there. And this is kind of a historical look. I went back and took a look historically at the budgets and the various numbers that are there. So you'll see up on this top slide are the revenues. Give me 1 second, please. Is that better? I hope. Okay. So what you'll see on the top slide here are the revenues and that, broken down by property taxes, local revenue, state sources, and federal sources. You'll also see down at the bottom, you're going to see all the expenditures, again, broken down by various categories: salaries, benefits, purchase services, supplies, and materials. These areas are broken down, and one of the reasons I like using these various areas is because this is according to the Illinois Accounting Manual object code. So it's kind of broken down that way. You also see down at the bottom of here is the either the excess or deficit over the years. Also, you'll see some fund balances that are down here, which is kind of a simple way of talking about that is kind of the cash in the bank and that. So that is there at the top of this sheet. You're actually going to see what the fund balance is to start, total, and then at the bottom you'll see how we end up also. Okay, so that's kind of just a historical look. The next page of the presentation puts in the numbers, and I'm going to blow this up a little bit too for you. So what you'll see here is the same data, but again, as we go over here, you're going to see also I've added in the 17-18 budget numbers in that. Okay. Now, again, this number here does not include the 71,498, does not include the additional $2 million that I had talked about in my board report. So that does not include that. So you'll also see, again, broken down by property taxes and then other local sources, state and federal sources. And then again, these are the expenditures that are broken down by salaries, benefits, purchase services, and then the rest of them. So again, when you go all the way to the bottom, you're going to see here the deficit as it's projecting out right now and that. And again, with a cash balance then of about $22 million. As we look at that then, and I'm just going to reduce this a little bit so we can get the whole page up here. So these are really the goals that I've established in my area and in my department as, again, I begin looking at the financial and operational goals. So you'll see about evaluating the operations to gain efficiencies by having systems determine our operational functions. A lot of times when we put systems in place, we still think that we should be doing the same thing, the same operational things, instead of letting the system determine how we operate. Things like paperless invoices, paperless payments to people. A lot of people pay their bills online. We should start doing that because then we don't have to pay postage to mail out things. It's free. So those are the kind of things that I'm looking at within our area. I've begun meeting with some of the board members concerning the budget development, the structure, budget kind of do's and don'ts. So I started meeting with a couple of board members already, and we'll be meeting with more of them to talk about the budget. I continue to meet with administrators when discussing the budget and purchasing philosophies. One of my philosophies are needs over wants. there are wants, and I think one of the public had mentioned about the cherry on the pie. My concern is making sure we have the needs met of our students and what those needs are, and then we can look at their wants if we have any excess for that. Again, collaborating with administrators to develop long-range financial plans, talked about a little bit previously. And again, a line-by-line analysis of the 17-18 budget to develop an understanding of its contents, the opportunities for savings and efficiencies. Which leads me then, this is the last slide of questions and comments, which leads me to something I talked about, and that is zero-based budgeting. So let me pull up the revenue side first, and I'll show you this.
Sir,
Yes.
just before you go off that, I have
Yes.
a question on page 4, slide 4.
Sure. We'll go back to it. Sure, Albrecht. This one here?
Yeah, slide 4, and if you can kind of enlarge the bottom there and compare the original budget for fiscal year 2016, 2017 to the amended budget.
Go to that. There you go.
So here, I think it's important for the public to see that the original budget for last year showed a deficit, or projected a deficit of around $750,000. We actually outspent our revenues by 5.4 million, and that's a surprise. That's a huge miss. And I just want to make sure, as we're voting tonight on a budget that is going to project a deficit, that we won't end up with a miss similar to that next year.
I agree with that. To let the public know, and also, we have the auditors in right now taking a look. It's an annual thing that we have to go through, is the auditors are looking at all that, because when I see that also, it's a shock to me to go from 700,000 to 5.4 million. So instead of me doing an analysis of that, I think it's best to bring in an independent auditor. We have to do that anyway by law. We're required to do that. We have a new auditing firm this year than we've had in past years, Miller Cooper. So they are coming in now, and they've already been in to do get a lot of the files gathered. They're coming in starting Monday to do a lot of their field work. So they'll start doing that, and they'll be doing that, and then they make a presentation to the board with their audit findings and everything. And so they'll be doing that probably, I think, December, January, they usually make that also.
Thank you. And I think putting the budget up here and presenting it
Sure.
is very good.
I apologize for that. So not a problem. So let me talk a little bit about what I called zero-based budgeting. And I know there's times that that term is thrown around a lot, but again, I like to define that. So this is a worksheet that I use. Now, when I start developing budgets, I use Excel. For those that aren't familiar with Excel, it's what's called a spreadsheet, and you can do formulas, do automatic calculations in it, and all of that. So I have a lot of this information in Excel, and then I can just transfer it into our software, our financial software. So this is just one area. You'll see up on the top here, you'll see up here it says the revenue from state sources. So these are each one of the state sources that we get revenue from. The list continues, as you'll see down here. Okay, so it goes all the way. So again, on the budget that I shared with you a little bit earlier on a couple of slides, it came out to $16.1 million, and this is the disbursement of that, of how that comes. Again, I've identified some more revenue that is coming in that is according to that board report, so those do not appear on here. So again, this is kind of easy to understand, but what you'll get a better idea when you talk about zero-based budgeting is the expenditure side. So this is the what I call, and I'm just going to enlarge this a little bit. So this is what I call a program area. This is the curriculum program area. And there are about, the way I do a budget, there's probably about 50 or 60 different program areas. There's special ed. There is interscholastic athletics. There's non-athletic programs. So all those are different programs. And it's regulated by this number right here, which is called a function code according to Illinois State Manual, the Public Manual on Accounting. So that's what kind of defines that. So what you'll see as you go through here is a line by line analysis of every different account that we have. Now, we have approximately 3,000 accounts in our system. So I actually go through every single account, and you'll see this as I go through this. So you'll see under budget services, professional development, this is what has been listed in there and appropriate amounts and that. So you'll see all of this as you go line by line and that, on what the money is spent on. And again, it goes down, you'll see this here, an amount of $582,000. Now, that's not all that's spent on curriculum, because we also have things like Title I funding, Title II funding. Those also have some costs in it. So that's a different program area, but there's also some costs that are associated with that and some expenditures that are in there and budgeted amounts in there. But that's what I consider zero-based budgeting, starting from the ground up, building that budget all the way up, going account by account. Okay? I believe the last one that I think I put up here is the, this is the ISB form, Illinois State Board of Education form.
Well, Ken, before you go to this form.
I'm sorry.
This is the last form, so
Yeah.
this is kind of, somewhat complicated for a lot of people. But going back to where my colleague, Mr. Nelson, or Mr. Albrecht said that there was a huge miss in the original budget for Y16-17. Could you go back to that slide?
Sure. I sure can. Oh, get it here one day. There it is. This one here.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
So that original budget is a little bit over 750,000, and the amended budget was 5.4 million thereabout. Was there any additional revenues that we expect to come in on that?
There was the additional revenue that came in. There was about $1.8 million that came in from the state this year. That was a categorical payment for last year. Now, the auditors determined whether to put that back into that year or not. I'm leaving that up to the auditor and what they want to do, either to put that $1.8 million back into last year's, because we work on a modified accrual basis. So we can go back if we wanted to. So the auditor is going to make that determination. I have not included that money in any of my figures at all.
Okay. So it was stated to the board that we will come out basically at the end of Y16-17 fiscal year right around 3.5, 3.6 million.
Yes,
If you
I think
add
so.
that in, that would be.
If you add that in, yes.
There you go.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So again, before you go on, I did not hear where we are. Do you have any idea where we are with life safety issues?
Sure.
We talked about health insurance, which I'm all for making our employees healthier. But I'm that much more concerned with the health and the risk and the safety of our students, as well as the public, as well as our employees. So I don't know if you want to explain it, or do you want me to explain it, what life safeties are and what's required by the state, or where we are, and I can tell you if you do not know.
Sure. If you feel free to start, and then I'll just chime in if you want to do that.
All right, the state requires school districts that have buildings that's 10 years or older to perform a life safety survey to ensure that we address life safety issues. And once those issues are identified, we have a 5-year period to get those completed, from most urgent to least urgent, but all considered life safety. Our 5-year period, I believe, started in 2013, 2014, actually 2015, they're about when we started the clock. We actually started the survey in 2013. That was our 10-year period, but we started the clock and getting the issues addressed in 2015. So here we are in going to Y17, 18. We addressed the most critical issues that first year. Right now, for 2018, we have millions and millions and millions of dollars with our worst performance at Crete Elementary of almost $4 million of life safety issues that we need to address in next year. $4 million of expenditures. So are you aware of that?
I'm aware of some of that. I am aware that our director of facilities has begun conversations with the architect that did the life safety. So to talk about the life safety also, not all schools are done at the same time. So different schools are done at different times and that.
Correction, what do you mean not all schools are done at the same time?
The time frame is 10 years. So it's 10 years from when the school was built also. So all schools don't fall under the same rotation. There are different rotations for schools.
No, it's if a school is 10 years or older. But for the most part, we captured all of the schools except the high school, this high school right here, and Monee Elementary.
Right. And so the high school, I just got a proposal on that to do the life safety on that one because that is 10 years old this year and that. So that's when you do it at 10 years old. Every 10 years, you have to have the life safety performed on your buildings and that.
No, you're not clear with it, Ken.
Okay.
I don't want to expend time.
No, I agree.
We already submitted an action plan on the life safety issues that were identified. We submitted it to the state of Illinois as well as our regional superintendent.
Yes.
We gave them the action plan when we will complete our life safety issues.
Yes.
Issues that's adverse to our public. So Crete Elementary, we were looking at one time to take that out because that was one of the worst performers as far as life safety issues were concerned. However, I'm not going to get into the powers to be.
Sure.
We moved on away from that plan, and here we are. Now we stuck with these life safety issues that by law we need to complete during this time frame. We are in 2017, 2018, 18 fiscal year, and we have nothing in our plan to address those millions and millions and millions of dollars of expenditures.
Yes. So I've put into the budget amounts to meet with the architect and to develop part of our master facility plan and to look at those needs and that. So there's money that I've put into the budget to do that.
You put $3.8 million to do Crete Elementary, which is due.
No, I don't. No. I did not do that. I put money to meet with the architect to develop those plans in order to take care of those life safety needs.
How do we plan on getting the money?
I don't know that. What I'd have to do is, and what the architect will be doing is they will be getting new cost estimates on those. And then what I'll be doing is developing some type of plan to pay for those and bringing that to the board. I don't know that at this point yet.
I think it should be higher on our list. And again, you're new to this position, and I'm not pointing the finger at you, but I don't see the sense of urgency there. Do you know what our state profile is at the last one? Do you know what we obtained from the state, our profile number?
I do not know that.
Okay, we received recognition, our last one, at 3.7 out of 4. 3.7, we received that twice. That's the highest over the last 5 years. Okay, with these numbers and with the numbers that I'm throwing at you, if we take on and embark upon those expenditures, we would be under the financial warning, if not watch list next year or the next time around when we do the profile.
Right.
Okay. Our last profile, our revenues, if you go back and look at it, exceeded our expenditures. So we got a good number right there. Our fund balance, as you can see it dwindling down from Y15 to 16, from 41 million to 26 million. That's our lifeline right there, that fund balance. And it's going to continue to erode. We lose that, we're in bad shape. We have to maintain that. It's continued to erode, and that's a problem.
Sure.
So the 5 categories: fund balance to revenues ratio, revenues to expenditure ratio, that's our deficit. Cash on hand, we should maintain 180 days of cash on hand. We exceeded that with 198 days of cash on hand. We need to look at that. Our short-term borrowing is good. We don't want to get into this district, have a history of borrowing tax anticipation warrants.
Right.
I know you know all about those. We
Mhm.
got drawers, probably drawers full of those in your office there. We don't want to do that, okay?
Right.
So our long-term borrowing, we pretty much maxed out on that. So our only lifeline at this point is life safety
Sure.
bonds.
Sure.
Can
And
I
I
make
think,
can I make a comment?
Yes.
You know, we've been going through this kind of, hardship for a number of years. All the board members that have been on the board have known that this has been an issue, that, this problem has been in existence.
I
It
agree
hasn't
with
been-
you. I agree with you 100%. And I said, two wrongs don't make a right. So to push it up under the rug and say these life safety issues has been like this, I've been passionate about fixing these problems in the school. No one, if you go back, you can look at any minute or any conversation I had.
Well,
I have never.
Mr. Brown, I agree with you. I
Okay?
know that
I've
you've been
passionate
advocating
about
this all
that.
along.
Yeah.
But to put this gentleman on the spot.
Oh,
with
I'm
this
not
kind
putting
of-
it on the spot. That's why I'm
You know,
trying to.
that this is a problem that we have been facing now for 10 years. We've
Absolutely.
been making decisions that
Absolutely.
that resulted in this problem.
Yes.
We are now having this situation. The question that I would have for you, and I assume you're going to try to address this year, is if you went from 750 to a $5 million deficit difference, I understand that's an issue that you're looking at, but how are you going to make sure that doesn't happen? And this 2.2 that you're getting, which is actually going to turn out to be a windfall because it was a change in the political environment. Maybe that's something you need. I'm glad you're looking at the facilities thing, but we've done that before. So please don't spend a lot of money on that. We've done that multiple times. We need to address this problem in a way that makes sense. And just having consultants tell us what to do hasn't really helped us that much in the
We have
past.
to, and again, we just have to, I say, follow the law. That's all. And Ken, if you fail, we all fail. I'm not here to make you
no, I
fail.
understand
Not at
that
all.
completely. No, I understand that
I'm a
completely.
friend, not a foe.
And that's not a problem at all.
I'm a friend, not a
please,
foe.
understand that.
On this life safety stuff, this can's been kicked down the road by several school boards, and Mr. Brown knows that.
Absolutely.
And we also know that when they did the life safety inspection, the cost to repair these older facilities, Crete Monee, the old Crete Monee High School, which is called the sixth grade center that's currently closed where the dome is next door to us. That's closed, so we're lucky in that respect. That was the most amount of money.
No, actually, Crete Elementary was the
Was
most.
Crete,
That
was
second.
Crete more, they were running close
That's
neck
correct.
and neck, but
That's correct.
it was not feasible to put the money in there. It was more, there was a formula, I think it was 40 or 60%, I don't remember.
It was advantageous not to.
Not to repair them, to tear the darn buildings down and put a new building up because it wasn't worth throwing good money after bad.
I'm with you.
So, to make that clear to the public that, school boards, there was a gentleman here that used to be a president of school board talking about an hour ago. He kicked the can down the road. President before him kicked the can down the road. It's been kicked down the road for 25 years that I've been coming to these meetings. So
But I'm not.
this
gonna
is
kick the
nothing
can.
new.
I'm not kicking the can down the road.
No, but we need to address this smartly. If the building is not, if throwing this money in the building that is not fiscally sound to do that, then we need to close the building and look at alternatives to put these children in other buildings that are not wouldn't cost us millions and millions to fix an old building that is still built in 1928. Anytime you turn around, that's how that building has been here for 90 years.
Right.
And
No,
we did have a plan to just do that again. Mr.
we did.
Ray, and it was shot down in many ways, many shapes, and many forms. And here we are revisiting this issue again, and again.
I
And
agree.
I am not going to let it drop. I do not want a boiler to blow up at one of these schools and harm our kids. Which kid is it going to be? Which person is going to be? I just want to let the public know that I'm going to strive hard as I could to make these repairs, or we do whatever we could to get our kids in a safe environment.
And I think not only do we have to do repairs, I think we also have to improve our facilities. Like I was over today at Balmoral, and there's a building that doesn't have air conditioning. And that's a problem, especially when we get into days like this.
We addressed
You know,
all of those issues.
So again, I'm committed, and I will tell you this straight out, and I'm on public record of saying that. I'm committed to doing that. I'm committed to having a plan by the end of this fiscal year that I can present to the board, not only a plan, what we're going to do at our facilities, but also a financial plan of how we're going to pay for it too.
But I would want from you, a business manager, and you can talk to whoever the powers to be on the board, that this is a sense of urgency that we
I
ought
agree.
to see, to talk to the powers to be, being the regional superintendent,
Mhm.
and find out just where we stand, how much time we have to work with
Sure.
before we try to implement a plan. That should be the first thing we ought to do.
I can take care of that.
Thank
Okay,
you.
and may I make a comment, please? It's in terms of the budget.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm pretty sure in terms of the budget, the extracurricular activities and coaches are built into that budget.
Yes,
And I want to ask that we reinstate Coach B as the wrestling coach and do away with the residency contractor, because that's to me is spending dollars somewhere where it's not needed, and we need to put the money where the children are. So I'm asking again to reinstate Coach Burchett as the wrestling coach. Thank you.
Well, I want to revisit the difference in the numbers that we have there, the 700 and, looks like 758,000.
758,032.
Okay, and then the 5 million carried
Yes,
over into the current year.
5.4 million.
I would be interested in knowing why those numbers jump so high. That's number one. Number two is that I've encouraged the board to be fiscally responsible.
Sure.
And I don't understand why we can make decisions that's going to create more problems than the problems we're trying to solve. Okay, and when we have personnel problems that's pending, that can lead to excessive legal bills and unnecessary expenditures that can be put into the education of children, we are wasting our time if we don't address the issues up front.
Thank you.
And for clarity, so it's clear that up top, this is revenue, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so we see the revenue clearly is less, but our expenses, if you go down, have increased. I do want to point out that we did settle 2 union contracts last year.
Yes.
So that's part of the increase, just so the public knows that.
I believe so.
That's part of the increase. However, we still have issues with state funding, which are contributing to the lesser amount at the top. I thought I heard it implied, I don't know if it was you or Mr. Albrecht, that there may have been an issue with the auditing. That's not the reason why there's such a huge difference there. So I wanted to point that out. You mentioned earlier that.
Dr. Hall, if I could just
Sure, go ahead.
piggyback on that, please. And I think one of the things you mentioned is about the auditors. I was the one that mentioned that too, but, and again, I would rather not analyze this. I would rather have the auditor analyze that and see that. I agree with you on the contract resolutions and the contract settlement. I believe there's some retro pay that was also involved in that too. So I concur with that, yes.
And I'll just say, going back to my statement last week, and I'll say it again, I understand that we do need to take care of our teachers, but at the end of the day, we have to be fiscally responsible. We cannot rely on the state of Illinois, even though we've just passed this bill that's claiming we'll get extra funding. There's still a budget that has to take place for the upcoming legislative year. That money still has to be allocated. So again, we don't know for certain how much increase we're going to get and if it's going to be allocated in the amounts that we need. We're far away from what schools need from the state of Illinois. We're billions of dollars away. So just so the public understands that, this is where we are in our state. That huge jump, it may not seem like that big of a jump, but you lost, see how far, we're 68. What year was that back there?
Hold on one second.
2013, 14?
I believe so.
So 2016, 17, if you see that, same amount, a little bit more. So that's why it's important that we do make those decisions on the school board. Sometimes it has to get a little tight, and that's just the bottom line. We have to make sure that we're doing what we need to do with tax dollars. I just wanted clarity because you mentioned that you met with several board members regarding the budget. Was that to give input on the budget?
No,
What
that
was
wasn't.
this?
That was just to show them what the structure is. The same thing I'm kind of showing you. I went through what the structure is that I'm going through, that I'm using in my office.
Okay.
Things like zero-based budgeting. I explained that. In fact, show them these exact sheets and
Okay.
that so that they can see what I did. The other thing I shared with them are some other board reports that I have used in the past that eventually would like to bring to the board and share with the board and work with the board on having those reports that'll show expenditures and revenues. I know, Mr. Brown, you had talked to me about coming in even and visiting with me in that. We haven't been able to get a mutual date yet, but we've talked about doing that. So it's just showing the board members what I do budget-wise and how I develop the budget and the work I do.
Okay, and so was any input given by board members on this budget?
No, there was not.
None at all?
These,
Okay.
these numbers are straight from Dr. Williams's files and that. So no input was made, no changes were made to this by them giving me any input at all.
So the zero-based budgeting, the example or the draft that you gave us regarding curriculum, was that yours?
That's mine.
Do we have zero-based budgeting itemized for each?
For everyone, it's about 154 pages long.
Okay.
I could share that, but it is. It's with every single account, every single line item. Yes.
We're here to approve our final budget, but yet you sent us a draft. Do you have a final zero-based budget for each department?
I don't have that yet because, again, I'm still working on that and working on that analysis, and that's going to be my adjusted budget and that I'm going to bring to you in October or November and that. I'm not finished doing that analyzing yet, and that's why I mentioned like that 2.2 million that I mentioned. I haven't put those into these numbers yet. So I didn't want to mix up things is what I didn't want to do. Bring it, half done and not the full picture. So that's why I have that in here.
I can't see the category. I assume the 11 million, somehow 82,000. Can you swing it over? That's our debt. That should be our debt statement, right?
Do you want to go to the next page, Mr. Brown? This one with the 17, 18 in it?
Yeah, that's fine. So
Okay.
So we got a payment, two payments equally split up, $11 million for our debt. That should be our debt. You don't have a category, the actual.
I don't have a category actually for debt. It would be under this 15 million right here, which is other objects actually. Let me just kind of shoot over here.
It's the 11.
It's other objects. It's called other objects.
That's what you.
So that one there, let me, hold on, let me just kind of reduce this a little bit so we can get the whole slide in here. I know the numbers are going to be a little bit small.
Where's our debt? I'm looking for our debt payment.
So our debt is listed actually under other objects, which is here.
Why is that?
Because that's according to the Illinois Manual for Accounting. We do, and that. Now, there's ways of separating that out. If you looked at both operating funds versus all funds, there's a way of doing that. But again, it's listed under other objects. It's also listed that way when you look at the Illinois State Board of Education. That's where it's listed actually in that form too. So yeah, so that amount actually has gone up. There's a little spike this year in your debt payment. So our debt payment goes up a little bit this year, then it flattens out a little bit after that.
Ken, there's been lots of talk about tonight about more in the classroom, more in the classroom, more in the classroom. Can you explain to the public that so they understand that salaries, this debt repayment takes up the major portion of the money that we have? It's the money that goes in the classroom. If you deduct salaries, benefits, purchases, supplies, and your other category, you're calling it other objects, it's probably over 80% of the budget goes towards that.
It does. So if you take a look over here on this side over here, our salaries and benefits, about $43 million over here. And then under this line item, there's about 11, I think it's around 11.5 million in a debt payment.
Yes, yes.
Yes,
absolutely.
so that's under there. So that 11.5, 43, 54, $55 million out of the 76 are for those just three areas. in
Right,
that.
just so the public
know.
understands, that's money that doesn't go directly in a classroom.
Yeah, so that money is, well, it goes into the classroom in form of personnel, but, it doesn't go into supplies and that, but that's where most of your budget
Right,
is.
we got to
Again,
pay
we're-
our teachers, but, they keep talking about classroom. Let them understand that
Right.
this budget that we have, you can't, that we're not taking a huge chunk of money and buying new whiteboards for the classroom. We're not buying new seating. We're not buying new textbooks all the time. We're
Yeah.
not buying all the modern technology because we're paying all this other stuff.
Right.
Just so they understand that they're sitting there thinking that we're not putting money in the classroom. We're putting what we can in the classroom. And I think the public needs to know that.
Yeah, I think one of the things, is just to be wise as we do that. And again, you'll see that when you start taking out some things, utilities is another area that is required that we have to have. So, but again, it is being wise and it is being smart with the dollars that we spend.
I like to just say to the public that normally, and I don't know if you were made aware of this, especially in the absence of our superintendent, someone should have made you aware of it. But normally, this is not how the presentation is. Those of you that have been here before know that it's typically a PowerPoint. So I personally apologize if it seems like it's over your head. I don't know if it's possible to actually make a version where the public can understand. Dr. Williams, even her predecessors, typically did it in a PowerPoint fashion where they actually explained it in more charts and graphs and things like that.
Okay.
So,
Okay. And I can develop a version like that also?
thank
Okay,
you.
if that'll be helpful. Sure. Sure, not a problem. No, I can take care of that.
Can I just ask one question? Could you just explain the capital outlay expenditure and why that fluctuates so crazy? What's covered under capital outlay?
Capital outlay is of course, capital projects, that's an easy answer, but capital project, a lot of the middle school construction would be covered into that area, Annette. So that would be capital outlay. And then any other type of projects you may have. Some of our building and grounds, like if they do some repairs to parking lots or anything like that, that's all covered in capital outlay also. Okay?
So again, we went from the revenue 69 million from 16, 17, now we're showing 71 million.
Mr. Brown,
I'm
we
sorry,
can't
Mr.
hear-
Brown,
we
say that
can't
again?
hear you.
The 21, or the, let me see, 20, the 69 million in Y16, 17 amended budget. And now you have the original budget, which is the budget that you want us to vote on tonight.
Yes.
And now that you have additional revenues there of almost $2.46 million.
I have not added that into this number. That is not in this number.
Okay, why did that number go up? I'm missing something. Why did the 69 million go up? Maybe I'm missing something here.
So you'll see the breakdown there of the increases. So you'll see an increase in property taxes. You'll also see an increase here, just a slight increase in other local revenue here. You'll also see a little bit of an increase in state funding, slight little decrease in federal funding. So those are where the increases are.
And you haven't added the 2.5 million or whatever.
I have not added, those numbers that are in my board report, I have not added into this number at all.
So if we were to add that number, we would be
2.2?
2.2.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
1.9.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
I just have one final question, if you don't mind.
Yes.
Because of the deficit that you're looking at, 5 for last year, 4 for this year, is that an anticipated increase? And at what point do we address the fact that we're going to go bankrupt bankrupt in a few years if we continue at that kind of deficit loss?
Yeah, here's the thing I tell you, you cannot continue at that pace because at some point, and I think Mr. Brown has mentioned this, you run out of money in that. So that's why we need to start looking at our facilities and seeing, can we support having the number of schools that we have, quite honestly. I think that's one of the things that we have to look at and trying to develop a plan possibly to consolidate those because the more facilities you have, the higher your expenses are going to be. And especially if you start looking at the budget and seeing, okay, what else can I cut? Can I really cut anything without harming the classroom? Because that's what you want to do. So, so that's something I'm going to be looking at this year.
I guess I have more of a comment
Yes, ma'am.
than a question. But when we're looking at these big deficits in our budget that are continually adding up, are we looking at administrator salaries? We have a very top-heavy administrative payroll. So instead of taking away from the classroom, are we looking at those options as well?
There are always those opportunities as we go through the budget. We look at those too. We analyze those, and the board analyzes that too to see if there's any way that we can reduce costs. Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Sarma.
Thank you.
I'd also like to say thank you for taking something that's fairly complicated and explaining it in a way that although I have an accounting background, was easier for me. It seemed like you did a good job with something that's difficult to address.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
Move.
I'll second it. Roll call?
Mr. Toure?
Aye.
This is to close the hearing, correct?
Yes. Mrs. Root? Aye. Dr. Hall?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Albrecht?
Aye.
Mrs. Gasparo?
Aye.
And Mrs. Galbraith is an aye.
Thank you. Action reports. Business.
I do have a question. I'm sorry. Do we have to come back into regular portion of the meeting, or that's all part of it? Okay. All right. Just kind of snuck past me. Thank you.
Mr. Surma, business. Can I get a motion to adopt the 2017-2018 legal budget?
Moved.
Second.
Mr. Surma?
Thank you. Again, I shared information not only with you, but also the public. We have adhered to all of the legal parts of approving or rejecting a budget. The documents that I've also listed in this part are the same documents that I've listed previously, so they are the same. I just did that just for convenience sake. The only difference is in the board report, I believe I changed the end to recommend from the administration of approving of the budget. That's it. So everything is really the same.
Thank you. Questions from the board? Roll call, please.
Mr. Toure?
Aye.
Mrs. Root?
Aye.
Dr. Hall? Mr. Brown?
Nay.
Mr. Albrecht?
Aye.
Mrs. Gasparo?
Aye.
Mrs. Galbraith is a nay.
Motion carries. Can I get a motion to approve the hiring of National Investigations, Inc. for residency investigation.
Moved.
Second.
Mr. Sarma? Or is this going to be Dr. Clark? Thank you.
Thank you. So what I have brought before the board is some updated information, which included the contract that was reviewed by our attorneys, reference checks for national investigations, up-to-date reference checks, board policy 460 regarding purchases and contracts, and the an Illinois school code regarding the same. The first thing that I want to point out, let me just get to it really quickly here. In our own current policy under residency, it does speak about that only students who live in this district should be attending our schools. And it is also a mandate for the state of Illinois that basically mimics the same. When I look at the, I'm trying to click on it, give me one moment. Some of the questions that came up was what to expect from this investigator, and I explained that we're looking at everyone. We're not trying to pinpoint any particular subgroup, but I do want to say, although I understand and hear the passion in this room regarding the investigative services, I do need to clarify that no one is coming into your homes and looking into your refrigerators and in your bedrooms.
Where's that written?
It was never stated, so I don't know
No,
where it
do
came
we have
from.
guidelines? Do we know their expectations, what we want them to do, what their boundaries are?
Yes, and in the contract, it basically states before they will move forward with anything, they're going to contact us, which means I will be the lead person on that. Once again, we're looking at fraudulent residency. And when we're talking about fraudulent, it's how the things are being done. And so we have to look at everything that is being presented. Our residency applications or paperwork that is completed is very clear about what you're supposed to bring to prove residency. When you can't do that, whether it's an investigative service or not, we're saying to you, we need that in order for you to attend our schools.
Okay, once we get past the data portion that we pay, is that the $5 fee per resident?
Per the family.
Per family? And if they find something that's abnormal or something to trigger an investigation, they said that they will typically take X amount of days, 4 to 6 days, 3 to 5 days to complete an investigation on one person.
Family.
One family. So what does that investigation consist of when we already did the data portion? Does that include surveillance? Does that include walking to, behind a person? What's the scope of investigation? That's what I'm concerned with.
It will include what we typically do right now, which is, say, for instance, if I was made aware of a family that is believed to be fraudulent, I can have the option to meet with that family. I can have the option to go to that family's home. I have the option to sit and watch that family go to and from.
So you have that option?
Yes, I do.
You have that option to enter that person's house?
That's not what I said.
If they allow you to?
But that's not what I said.
But I know that's not what you said. I'm asking you, do you have that option?
If they want to go, or if I want to even to go to the house and they allow me to come in, then yes.
So we're saying the scope of work that we want them to do is not to go to a person's home.
That's not what I said. I told you what
sound
the
like
options
a lawyer,
are.
okay?
No, what I want to be clear of is because I want to take the fear out of this. Just like you have people here that are saying, we want our kids to be protected. We want all of our kids to be protected. That's not the goal for this investigative services.
Who's
It's about
saying we want our
fraudulent.
kids to be protected?
That's
do you
what
mean?
I'm hearing. Am I not hearing that? We want our kids to be protected.
Who's saying it?
Everybody out here, that's all I've heard all night. I've been listening.
Everybody out there?
So all I'm saying is my point of bringing this service is to look at fraudulent residency.
But can't we do that as a district? Why do we have to pay an outside firm to do that?
Because what I would like to do, and I'm just going to be very honest with you, you're paying me to do a service already, and I started this, and it has taken a lot of my time away from my own job to do this. And also, I want to make sure that there is nothing, like, I don't want anyone to come off thinking that I'm trying to go after someone because I work for the school. That's not it. I want to
Well,
take all
Dr.
the
Clark, I don't
biases
think
away.
it's you. I don't think anybody personally said you are trying to go after people. I think that's the perception in the community that the school district is trying to go after people. It was stated, we're saying we're not targeting kids. However, it was stated, we're going to start with students that are living in leased homes, correct?
We're going to
Leases
start.
or apartments. That's targeting.
We said we're going to start. That's not a target.
It is a target. Why don't
There-
we go in alphabetical order or something like that? Why are we targeting people that are under leases?
That's not a target. It is a start.
It's
Because
a
the
target,
entire
but why are we
district-
starting with
Well,
them?
that is the person. We're starting with all of our families. We're going to start with everyone that does not hold a current mortgage like we would do anybody else. Because just like you have those that are here stating, you know, we're targeting, we also have families that are stating, I'm watching families come here off a train. I'm watching people being dropped off. I'm watching
And we
people
have
come here
homeless
on
students,
buses.
so
And I understand that. And so we have the documentation to show all of that. And if you are not being fraudulent, then you have nothing to worry about.
Absolutely.
I think you do, actually.
I respectfully disagree.
And if people didn't feel like they had anything to worry about and they weren't being targeted, you wouldn't see as many people here tonight
I understand.
concerned about that issue.
I understand.
Also, you stated that it was not stated that you were
If they're
going
legal
into.
residents, they got nothing. to
I think
worry
I'm talking, Mr. Teray. Thank you. Please be respectful.
about. You've been talking.
Please be respectful.
Mr. Trey.
You're saying that, this is what I'm talking about. This is what happens. You're saying that it wasn't stated that you could go into people's refrigerators. Are you saying that was never stated?
I've never said that. I don't know where that
No,
came
I said,
from.
was it stated? I didn't say if
I
you
never
said it.
heard anyone state that. I don't know where that came
That
from.
did not, that was not stated at the committee of the whole meeting.
No, it was not. I did not hear that.
Can an investigator, you have
Not
that right
true.
to do that, right? To verify.
I
if
did
they-
not hear the statement being made.
No, I'm asking you, do the
I was
investigator-
responding, but I'm listening to you
Does the
now.
investigator have a right to do that?
I've
They
never
can-
heard of I have never heard of an investigator going into someone's refrigerator or bedroom.
Okay,
That's not
okay,
true.
do some investigation on that, and you will
Right.
find that they can do that.
Well, that's why I did get in contact with some of the updated references, and no one has said that to
So you
me.
got, okay.
I think if you're here legally and you're a resident of the district, we're more than proud to provide you with the services, and God bless you. Please come into Crete Monee. If you're not here legally, then you got a problem.
Yeah, and I have no problem with driving my car and getting stopped by the police anytime they want to stop me, as long as I get a valid driver's license, I haven't done any wrong, I shouldn't have a problem with the police stopping me. So a person.
Is that a
But you
question
do.
for residency?
No.
I'm sorry.
It's a rhetorical question.
Okay.
It's a rhetorical question. So a family, if they're okay, and some document comes up and there's an issue, but they are legitimate, because there's a percentage that this firm will target, right? And out of that percentage.
That's not accurate, Mr.
No,
Brown.
that's not accurate. Or
No.
there's a percentage that they are going to go after.
That's not accurate
What-
either.
So how do we
They're
justify?
looking at every
Well, that's the
single
problem.
family.
Okay,
The
so
board
what number
doesn't
are we
understand
justifying, what number are we looking at for them to at least, what do we base our $10,000 or whatever number we had to allocate for this particular service? What number?
Based on the conversations that we had when we met with this particular investigative firm,
Okay,
actually, it was myself and Mr. Surma.
okay.
And
so-
let me ask the question on that, because the rumor is one of you brought this firm here. This is somebody that's connected with one of you. So can we clear that up?
Of course we can. I received an email, and I have no problem with showing that this firm basically got in contact with us and said, hey, do you know about the new residency laws? And we began talking from there.
And I do not know the firm. I haven't been associated with them at all. So I don't know them.
Am I not understanding it correctly, though? Aren't we doing it on every family, regardless
Every-
of their
yes,
residence?
Yes,
If
every
it's a
single
home.
one. We will be working with
So if
them.
we're doing it on every family, does it matter what order we do it in then?
No.
It does to some people, actually.
Well, no, I'm saying then we could do it on homeowners if that, If that makes sense, then let's start with
But why
homeowners.
make
If we're
the
going to
statement
do,
that we're starting with people with leases?
I didn't make that statement.
I didn't say you
I'm
made the
saying
statement.
that if we're
But we
going
need
to
to
do
stop
every
acting like we're
family, excuse me,
clueless
I'm
as to
talking.
speak
I
one
was
person at a
talking.
time.
Excuse
Dr.
me,
Hall.
I'm trying to talk for 1 second. I don't talk that much. So
True.
I wouldn't mind just being able to say a statement. All I'm saying is that we are doing every family. If we are going to do every family, it shouldn't matter where we start really. So let's start with, if it makes somebody more comfortable to start with homeowners versus people who lease or whatever else there
Or
is out there, then
alphabetically or
let's
any
do
other
it.
way.
That's all I'm saying. If we're going to do every family, then if it makes somebody more comfortable to do it a different way than what you stated, we could do that, right?
I have no problem with that.
So we're doing every family, we're trying to do just right now, the way it's written, to do the lease and the, what is it, the lease and the other?
That's how we wanted to start the check. If
Okay.
you prefer to do it
And
the other
how-
way around, that is fine. But we do residency check on every single student, every single year, every family, I should say. Every year, it's the same process. You have to produce the same information.
Okay, so it's $5 per
Family.
resident.
Per family.
Per family.
Per
Per
resident.
Okay.
Residents, is that what you're saying? Residents, or,
yeah.
okay.
So how many families do we have out there?
I have not divided that number up. I can get that for you and put it in your.
We asked for that
FYI.
last week.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, actually, I was told to bring back updated information, and I was asked to bring back updated contract and updated information regarding who has recently used that. So if I missed that, I apologize.
Yeah, I was the one that requested because I feel like how can we approve something? The board has no idea how much this will cost. I asked for a comparison of other districts and what they paid.
I have that for
And-
you.
But I'm saying it was specific things that were requested. Mr. Surma, I asked for a definition of special services because we were saying that this service should have been bidded out. And the response was, well, our board policy says we don't have to bid out for special services. So I asked for a definition of that. Do we have that?
I'm showing it up on the screen. You'll see the Illinois School Code under, it says contracts right there, and then where it says the parentheses I after following.
Pointer,
Oh, I'm sorry.
because it's not on our screen properly.
Did we run this past our legal counsel on this?
Two different attorneys in the same firm.
I'm sorry.
Yes, it was.
And they
run-
agree?
Yes,
Okay, and who ran this by the attorneys?
at our committee, or at our last meeting, we asked Dr. Clark to do that.
So you'll see here in the Illinois School Code that defines one of the exceptions, and that is contracts for the services of individuals possessing a high degree of professional skill where the ability or fitness of the individual plays an important part. So that is one of the areas and one of the exceptions that you have to the bidding process. And
I'm
that-
not understanding how that's applicable here. So this service requires an individual to possess a high degree of professional skill.
Yes.
How so?
I think because of what they're going to have to do if they decide to go on a residency check, having that background, they get special training in those areas in conflict management, so they have that, and they'll be able to handle the situation a lot better.
And the
I
ability
can
to do
ask, I mean, I can
background
ask our attorney to see if it fits under there, but
I think that's
believe
what we
have.
requested last week.
Well, I can,
And I would say additionally, we just saw a budget presentation where we have millions of dollars in deficit. I feel like our money can be better used
I want to move to call the
on
question.
academics.
I think,
Sorry. Mr. Trey, what did you say?
Madam President, could I move to call the question?
That means it's
Of
not-
course, we want to close the conversation.
We
Call the
we
roll,
just
please.
trying-
This is just to stop to call the question.
Without even getting the legal,
That's how we do. That's okay.
our counsel. I heard Dr. Clark said that we did talk to our counsel about just the legal. Do we have to bid or not? Is this considered a high professional?
I have a motion
service?
to call the question. I have to stop you. I'm sorry.
No, you do not have to stop me.
Would you call the roll,
So
please?
Are you willing to do that? You willing to
it's
violate the
calling-
law?
Call, it's Somebody called the question.
So call the vote, a roll call? Is that what it is? All right. Mr. Albrecht?
You
Aye.
can ignore it, it doesn't make a difference.
Mr. Brown?
Same thing.
Nay.
Dr. Hall?
Nay.
Mrs. Root?
I'm sorry, do we need a second on that motion?
No.
Okay. Aye.
Mr. Teray?
Aye.
Mrs. Gasparo?
Aye.
And Mrs. Galbraith is a present.
So back to the original motion to approve the hiring of National Investigations, Inc. Can I have a roll, please?
Could you repeat that, please?
The initial roll was just to call the question. That motion passed. Now we need to vote on the motion that was originally stated to approve the hiring of the Residency Investigations Company, National Investigations, Inc.
Okay, I didn't have clarity on what that vote was.
Mr.
But
Teray
it's
called the
fine.
question,
My
which
vote would have
means
been the same. I think, because you did not say I'm taking the roll for that.
I said,
So I didn't
Mr.
have
Teray
clarity.
called the roll. He called the question. We called the question. We'd have to take a roll call. Once that roll call is passed, now we have to vote on the original motion.
It would be helpful to specify what the motion is. Thank you.
She just did.
I think it was confusion.
Mr. Albrecht?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Nay.
Dr. Hall?
Nay.
Mrs. Root?
Aye.
Mr. Teray?
Aye.
Mrs. Gasparo?
Aye.
Mrs. Galbraith is an aye.
Motion carries. May I get a motion to approve the employment of certified staff, the reassignment of certified staff, the leave of absence for certified staff, the return from leave of absence for certified staff, the intent to retire from certified staff, the resignation of certified staff, the dismissal of certified staff, the employment of educational support staff, the reassignment of educational support staff, the leave of absence for educational support staff, the return from leave of absence of educational support staff, the intent to retire of educational support staff, the resignation of educational support staff, and the dismissal of educational support staff.
Moved.
Second.
Mr. Neal?
And the personnel report reads as follows. Certified staff leave of absence, Joanne Forstall. Certified staff resignation, Randy Susich. Educational support staff employment, Tracy Schultz. Educational support staff return from leave of absence, Dessa Covington, Richard Ray, Erica Rosenfeld, Catherine Showalter. Educational support staff resignation, Shernette Harris and Sierra Quick. And educational support staff intent to retire, Deborah Calicote. That ends the personnel report.
Any questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Teray?
Aye.
Mrs. Root?
Aye.
Dr. Hall?
Nay.
Mr. Brown?
Nay.
Mr. Albrecht?
Aye.
Mrs. Gasparo?
Aye.
Mrs. Galbraith is an aye.
Can I get a motion to approve and extend the administrative leave of the superintendent for a period of 30 days?
Moved.
I will second it. Discussion?
How are we voting on something that's not on the agenda?
Potential action regarding superintendent employment is on the agenda.
What is potential action?
It means that we are going to possibly be taking an action that's been,
So that actual action should have been on the agenda.
this was what was put on there. I have discussed this with legal counsel. Regardless of what we decided to do, this is the agenda item that was recommended.
Okay, I want to go on the record as stating I had no knowledge of this item, as I have not had any knowledge of any actions with the superintendent.
This is
I
what was
personally have
discussed
been a
at the
board
person-
member that has been left out of the conversation. I just want everyone to know that.
There has been no conversations at all with any board members since the closed session. This is what we discussed at the closed session. We are making a motion on that now.
So you had conversations with the lawyer, you're saying?
Of course, yes, I just had a
Okay.
conversation with him today.
Do
So
you
this
not,
board
do you not
did
share
agree-
that?
right.
Can we say we
That
share?
was what the motion is. There was nothing else. We will go into closed session later and discuss what was said.
I have
So
no
you've had
knowledge either.
conversations with the lawyer. When I was president, you all insisted on written summaries, correct?
I don't remember
Where-
any
where are the
written
written
summaries
summaries?
whatsoever.
Where are the written summaries?
There are no, I don't remember getting
Exactly.
any written summaries for
Exactly.
anything while you were
So,
president.
like I said, I have no knowledge of this process.
But you are supposed to be better than us.
Excuse me?
No, that's what you are. You said you don't remember getting any summaries. Does that make it right that you don't give us any summaries?
I don't remember even ever discussing written summaries. We're
Oh.
not going to have written summaries. Our attorney comes in once a quarter and discusses any pending litigation with us. We've never had any written summaries.
Check the minutes or ask your fellow board members that requested it. And you didn't get a written summary from me because after that, the conversations were between the superintendent and the attorney.
We have a motion
But
on
of
the floor.
course, it changes under new leadership.
Any other questions? Call the roll,
Are we
please.
following due process with the superintendent?
We are not discussing personnel issues in open
It's
session.
not a personnel issue. This is a process issue. Are we following due process
We
as
will-
a school board?
We discussed this at a closed session last week. There is a motion on the floor. I'm going to call the motion.
So you're refusing to answer the question? Okay.
Can I get a roll call, please? The motion was to approve and extend the administrative leave of the superintendent for a period of 30 days.
Mr. Albrecht?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Nay.
Dr. Hall?
Nay.
Mrs. Root? Aye. Mr. Touré?
Aye.
Mrs. Gasparo?
Aye.
Mrs. Galbraith is an aye.
Motion carries. Old business? New business? Would the board choose to go into closed session? Okay, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.